you don't learn how to create a connection between your authentic self and your public image, you're going to experience a level of aloneness in your life that will be suffocating. And you know what? Maybe the world doesn't deserve to know you, but you have to have people in your life that deserve to know you. And so you have to make sure there are some people you're not performing for.
Guys, and welcome my good friend, Erwin McManus. Erwin, dude, what's going on, man?
And it's so good to be with you. It's exciting to have a conversation with you. By the way, I love your background. I think it's very, very epic, very masculine.
Well, you know, warriors know warriors, right? So there's been some grinding in my life as well. But look, dude, this Mind Shift book, dude, it's incredible.
Thank you so much.
Seriously, I'm like you, right? We're self-taught, personal and professional learners, and I find that the most successful people in the world are. And
absolutely.
My first mentor a long time ago told me if I was going to do anything in life, I had to do one thing and one thing only, and that was change the way I thought. If I could change the way I thought, and i.e. learn to think like him versus my father at the time, that literally there's nothing that I could not do. And
I love it.
Hindsight being 2020 and having that trajectory of my life and things of that nature, it's been pretty powerful because to see it manifest itself in being truth, right? And so when I started going through the book Mind Shift, I was like, man, this is really, really, really spectacular, because it your perspective and how you phrase terms or look at concepts, or it makes it very easy to attain it and then put it into practice, which I greatly appreciate. But I'm curious to know, out of the first out of the gate, why do really great people think really poorly or make really bad decisions?
That's a great question. It's a great starting point. I was going to say about school, you have to get out of school to finally begin to learn.
Ain't that the truth?
But I think that's, if you're really good at something, it gives you a pass on a lot of other things. And so if you happen to be, a fantastic physical specimen and you're a great athlete, they're going to give you classes where you don't have to study. And you think they're helping you, but actually what they're doing is they're really hurting you, because they're teaching you to ignore growing holistically as a human being. And that you need to develop internal disciplines for success. So the reason really successful people really think in incredibly stupid ways is because rapid success gives us a way out of personal growth. And we don't like to say that out loud. We like to pretend that, rapid success and personal growth go hand in hand, but they don't. Sometimes we were a one-handed, baseball player.
Right.
We can only catch, we can't throw. And what I find is that it's really challenging, because a lot of the people I work with are at the highest level of success. And now they're having to learn some very basic mental frameworks just to be able to have a marriage that survives, or to parent and have kids that don't hate them all their lives, and to not die alone. There's just some basic things that get lost in the process.
No, well, I also think that after studying a lot of your work, that the key focus on the intention behind what you're trying to build or what you're trying to go after.
Absolutely.
I would say from my own personal journey, I had to have outside influences to help me understand what types of mind shifts I needed, like how I needed to think differently in different areas. What does it take to have a level of self-awareness to, kind of understand where it is you're maybe kind of struggling at, or where you could use improvement on, to really have a place to really set an intention and focus?
I think one of the advantages that I've had in my life is that I didn't have any inherent natural talent.
I would disagree with that, but okay, knock yourself out. Go ahead.
Or let's say this, I had latent talent that I didn't discover until different phases of my life. Which I think should be a point of hope for a lot of people who think, wow, I don't have any natural talent. Frankly, a lot of the things that people identify as a top tier talent in my life, they didn't emerge until later. And because human beings are really complicated creatures, right?
That's true.
And so a lot of the mind shifts that I learned to make were in the struggle of just trying to have some basic success in my life. So I wasn't learning them when I was achieving a much higher level of success, the kind of success that people, usually admire or they want to try to emulate. They didn't realize I didn't learn those mind shifts when I was successful. I learned them when I was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became a voracious learner. I couldn't find a mentor. I wanted a mentor so bad, but
Mm-hmm.
mentors have to be selective.
Yeah.
They have to choose someone that they believe has the capacity to embrace what they're teaching at a rapid rate. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't show those characteristics early on, so I understand why I didn't get picked in the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also realized even if they didn't pick me, I could pick them.
Yeah.
So yesterday thing, I'm basically like a behavioral psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
I've studied human beings for 6 decades.
Mm-hmm.
And from professionally at University of North Carolina, studying even abnormal psychology, I went through the whole process studying geniuses and studying sociopaths. I mean, I really tried to understand the nuances of human behavior and understand what behaviors, what mental constructs led to an optimal level of life and which ones actually limited people. And that's what I distill in Mind Shift. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I hope you notice how simple the book, but it's
I
not
love
simple.
I think that's actually what gives it the power it has and the punch that it has. I find that most folks who are consuming personal and professional development content on a regular basis are always looking for the hack. They're always looking for the secret, right? They're always looking for some kind of like complex way to manage their life, manage their business, manage their relationships. And I've been one who's discovered through, I guess, life and then some of my own mentors along the way that it's the principles that you apply that really make it simplistic. And that's the thing is one of the things I love about the book. There's a lot of meat on the bone, don't get me wrong, in the book, but there's also a lot of simplistic the way in which you break it down for folks gives a unique perspective and a unique bite-sized approach to conquering those types of maybe things that are kind of in their way that have to be shifted, which is what I love. In fact, one of the things you just mentioned that I really love about the book is in one of the chapters you talk a lot about the perception of talent.
Yeah.
Right. And you're saying, that most you gave us several examples. I'll let you kind of share on it, but you know, several examples of people with immense talent that didn't go very far. Meanwhile, you had people that had seemingly no talent or hidden talent or unutilized talent that through hard work and diligence and willingness to work on self and stuff like that really grinded it out. And so much so that one of the quotes that you mentioned, I'm gonna butcher this a little bit because it's coming from memory, but is that if you can't find a talent, it probably means you're heading towards leadership.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a question my son asked me when he was like 10, 11 years old. Dad, I don't seem to have any like unique talent.
Mhm.
And it's because his little sister had a lot of early expressions of talent, very musical, could sing, could write, could play any instrument.
Mhm.
So when you have that contrast with your 3-year younger sister who could just naturally pick up languages, right? Who just,
Yeah.
you're going, I don't have any talent. And I said, if you don't have any visible talent, you have to get to leadership.
Yeah.
And, and that's the way I always understood myself. But I want to say part of the reason I wrote the book the way I wrote it, and I had to fight with the publisher to make the book really small.
Mhm.
And it's not simplistic, but it's simple. And the reason is, have you ever gone to a doctor and they tell you what's wrong with you, but it's like so complicated you have no
Yeah,
idea
you
what's
can't
wrong with
pronounce
you?
half the words. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I remember one time I was like, well, you have an autoimmune, disease. And I'm like, oh no, I'm going to die. And I go, well, what does that mean? They go, well, you have a rash. And
So
it's
scare the
probably
crap out of
caused,
you for no reason.
yeah, it's probably caused by an allergy or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
why do you have to begin with like language that terrifies us?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when you see people who are incredibly successful, you think there's got to be some really complicated, mysterious code.
Yeah.
And it's not. When you find someone who has a good marriage and has a great relationship with their kids, my son's 35, my daughter's 31. They both live within 8 minutes of me.
Mhm.
I see them almost every single day.
Yeah.
We work together. My daughter works with me at Mosaic on one side. My son works with me in the arena on the other side.
Mhm.
And we have a beautiful relationship, but it wasn't rocket science.
Mhm.
They were basic frameworks that we established in our lives that allowed us to have incredibly beautiful relationships. Those are the kind of things I want to pass on to people, like talent is a hallucinogen.
Yeah.
I've been a Clipper fan for 20 years, so I know what it's like to live with pain. and, uh, and in the middle of the night, because I wasn't sleeping, I saw that James Harden was traded to the Clippers.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, James coming to LA, right? And I'm getting all these different, notes. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Because, I'm really interested in sports, and I'm a
Yeah.
pretty good analyst on most, on trades and deals. But one of the dilemmas for me is when you look at James Harden, because some people think, oh, talent is hallucinogen, so you can't be successful if you only build on talent and don't have discipline and don't have structure and don't have character. But James is, I think, the opposite example.
Yeah.
He's so talented that he perhaps could have been the greatest player who ever lived.
Yeah.
But on a scale of 1 to 10, if Jordan is a 10 in discipline, I'd say James has to be like a 1.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at someone who will probably end his career without winning a championship, I mean, I hope he does with the Clippers. That'd be great, right? But
Less pain.
but the track record wouldn't make us expect that outcome.
Right.
Not because of his talent. To me, it's like he has such extraordinary talent that he doesn't have to work hard, or he doesn't have to be disciplined. He doesn't have to take on those structures that really elevate, because he's so talented.
Yeah.
But think about everything he will have left on the table that he never actually actualized in his life.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have the same level of disciplines that Jordan had, or that Steph Curry had.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, I mean, even in the book, you give an example of Jordan playing baseball.
Yeah.
Right. He put in countless hours, throwing a ball at a hoop and flying through the air and all kinds of stuff, and didn't do as well in baseball. And it's the same kind of approach as, he didn't put we can assume that he didn't put the same level of intensity or effort that he put into basketball into his baseball career, at least early on anyway.
He just didn't put in the years.
Yeah.
Even if he put the same level of commitment in the short amount of time he was playing baseball.
Yeah.
Basketball was really the
tens of thousands and millions of hours. Yeah.
Product of endless, repetitive, points of discipline in his life.
Yeah.
And so I imagine he translated some of that discipline to baseball. But sometimes we expect too much too fast.
Yeah.
And the thing with Mind Shift, and it's one of the reasons I tell people, you don't have to read it from beginning to end. Pick the chapter that speaks to you the most right now.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need the other chapters later. And then the reality is that it's not a mind shift you make once and then everything's changed. Your mind will go back to your previous way of thinking.
Yeah.
And you have to keep going back to this mind shift throughout your entire life. And I actually think that's the discipline of greatness.
Yeah.
Is that not that you're also taking on a certain pattern of practice, but you're constantly forcing your mental structures to move in the direction of your optimal performance.
Yeah, well, that goes back to one of your other chapters, which is all about, kind of making sure you're not your own ceiling, right? Is putting yourself in a position to take in new information. I find that a lot of folks say they want a great life, they want a great business, they want a great marriage, they want a great this, they want a great that, but seldom are they taking just one activity every single day. Whether it's reading a book, whether it's, watching a podcast, watching something that's not of entertainment value, but more of life value, and as a result, I think we keep ourselves under that ceiling, right?
Yes,
we don't allow ourselves to kind of do that. So maybe give me a couple strategies or techniques that you've been, because you now kind of lead multiple businesses. You have Mosaic Church, which is massive, 20,000 plus streams, I think weekly. I mean, just it's massive. You have a clothing line that you developed. We share a lot of really good friends in Ed and John and a few others. And I know what their lives are like, but yet not only have you now achieved a certain level of success that most people would aspire to attain, but on top of that, you also are I've been in your presence a handful of times with different events, and you have a humble presentness about you. Right. Which means that you've been through some stuff that's created the mechanics, if you will, of kind of putting all of this together. But maybe help me understand some strategies or maybe some routines that you use currently today to keep yourself in balance, or what is perceived in balance to be as successful as you are.
Yeah. Last night in our home, I had our entire staff come, both from Mosaic and from my business. And we had dinner for everyone. We hung at the house for 3 or 4 hours, played foosball and played ping pong and just hung and talked. And I don't know a lot of CEOs who actually just invite everyone to their house.
Not many. Not many.
I mean, and it's everyone. It's not just like executive staff, you know. And if you're a personal assistant, if you're an intern, they're all at my house,
Yeah.
and everyone has equal access, and they're all treated incredibly well. And no one is treated in any hierarchical way. And you know, I'm walking around offering people hot sauce for their barbecue, right? You know, and 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 the reason I mention that is because I think the way you do that is you stay really connected to people. And I think humility really comes out of a love and a value for people, and where you never come to the place where you think you're better than other people.
Right.
And you know, you're different, and
Yeah.
you're better at certain things.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're not better than them in
Yeah.
terms of value. And I think that's kind of kept me grounded throughout my life. I remember one time my wife and I were walking down the street, and there were these guys that were clearly immigrants sitting on the sidewalk with a paper bag, pulling out their sandwich with, you know, the white bun. And I said to my wife, you know how there's an adage that says, "There by the grace of God, you know, go I or be I." And I told her, I said, that was me. See, I'm the immigrant that was working construction, that was sitting on the side of the street, eating my sandwich out of a paper bag.
Yeah.
That is who I was. It's not who I could have been. It's who I used to be. And when I was that guy, I still had infinite value and unseen potential.
Right.
You know, if in some sense I look back and go, if my boss could have understood who he was paying minimum wage to dig a ditch, he would have trained me to run this company. Because company would have done way better. And so I just remind myself that there is so much untapped and unseen potential in every human being. You know, treat all of them like one day they're going to be Elon Musk.
Yeah. No, I love it. I was also thinking back to I had another one of our mutual friends on not long ago, and we got into talking about the King David for some reason. We ended up there. It's one of my more favorite places in the Bible, and we were talking through it, and I had this interesting realization that King David he became a king in a cave, not in a palace. Like, it was the hours, days, weeks, years, persecution, and always operating in character and integrity and things of that nature that kind of set the stage for him to transition into a headship or leadership or kingship role. At the same time, you know, there's this key chapter in the book that I think is pivotal, and I don't think enough people take advantage of this in their life. I think we talk a lot about it, and it'll make more sense in a second, but we talk a lot about the importance of our relational circle and things of that nature. And, you know, at least for me, when I started, my first business that I ever had was a construction business, right? And that's the one I started with a nail and a hammer and grew to a sizable business, and that set the stage for everything else that followed it, right? And it dumbfounded me that when I was building the organization, that I literally could not take everybody with me.
Yeah.
You know, I had so many people that fell off, they wouldn't grow. You know, as the leader, I had to force myself to grow and become a leader of sorts. And it really broke my heart. Some family, some friends, you know, some acquaintances, but at the end of the day, I could go and see that immense potential. I could see that immense value, but they wouldn't see it for themselves, or couldn't see it for themselves for whatever reason. And then self-selected, you know, out of the circle, so to speak. So maybe look at it from a couple different angles, because I think it's one of the more, I think all the chapters are powerful, but it's one that resonated with me in memory. I was like going through all these different people that have come through my life, you know, and this was a reason, season, or lifetime. But, you know, why can't we take everybody with us? And maybe kind of how did you learn that same lesson?
Yeah. Chapters 1 and chapters 3 are like an ink block test. Chapter 1 is, it's all about people. And then chapter 3 is, you can't take everyone with you. Now, I find that some people are naturally, it's all about people, and really struggle with the shift of, you can't take everyone with you.
Yeah.
And some people, you can't take everyone with you is really easy for them. In fact, for them, you got to say, hey, it's all about people.
Right. Yeah.
And so even as you're listening to this conversation, you might want to read those 2 chapters and ask yourself, which one of these 2 chapters do I actually need to add to my life? For me, it's all about people was easy.
Yeah.
You can't take everyone with you was devastating.
Yeah.
and it slowed me down tremendously because I did not make these mind shifts on a Tuesday.
Right.
It
was
wasn't
like 20 years or 30 years of Tuesdays.
Yeah, it was a lot of Tuesdays and a lot of going back to Monday as if I didn't know this principle. And I cannot tell you how many times I would try to take people with me who didn't want to go with me. They were going kicking and screaming. And I thought I was doing them a favor. I wasn't doing them a favor.
Yeah.
And I spent 10 years working with the urban poor. And one of the things I began to realize is that you can give people opportunity, but they have to bring their own determination. And so I look at life and individuals from this particular intersection. And I feel like my responsibility, as much as possible, is to give as many people as I can opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunity they would have never had if I had not intersected into their lives. But it's not my job to give them determination.
Yeah.
So you don't have to bring any wealth with you, any resume, any success, any track record. All you have to do, all you need to bring is determination. And when you bring determination, everything else becomes irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because that opportunity will not be wasted. I just hired someone yesterday. We just hired them, and in the last interview after they're hired, you know how you have a conversation? They made a statement of, well, wait a minute, how much PA work is going to be involved? And personal assistant stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it instantly raises like this caution. And so she was at dinner last night, and I said, hey, I know you asked this question, how much personal assistant work will actually be involved? She goes, well, yeah, I asked. I just wanted to know, what percentage. And I said, hey, I want you to know, we all do personal assistant work here.
Yeah.
And, I'm the one that went and got the hot sauce and started bringing barbecue sauce to everyone. Like, it's not beneath me. Like, my wife spends the day preparing this whole house for you guys. It's like, it's not beneath her.
Right.
And I told her, I said, the question you should ask is not how low do I have to go, but how high do I have the opportunity to go?
Yeah.
And so I started bringing people on staff and who were running massive, projects, or they're executive level. And I go, where'd you start? They're like, well, I started as a graphic designer for you. I said, how much graphic design experience did you have? And he said, 0. I was terrible.
The mustard seeds.
Yeah. Another guy, like, oh, I started driving. I was a truck driver for you. Driving the truck. And these are the people running everything. And then our general manager, I brought her over and I said, so how did you start? She goes, well, I started as an intern. And I said, that's right. And what job did you get after that? She goes, I was an assistant to your assistant. So now you're running everything. You're everyone's boss.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we ask the wrong questions. It's almost like, hey, do I have to do like serving stuff as opposed to what's the ceiling in this place?
Yeah.
Because I told him, I said, the limit to your job is completely based on you.
Yeah.
The starting point is where you earn your credibility.
Yeah.
But it's just the floor. It's not the ceiling.
Yeah.
You're the ceiling.
Well, I know we share the same Lord, and it was common for him to serve not just the masses, but also his disciples at scale. Even going as far as washing the feet and like really trying to set the tone of what service looks like. And I'm like you, I'm with you. When we hire staff, doesn't matter which business it's for, even today, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was one of my executive team or if it's a driver or, someone setting up the AV stuff, the live events we do, it doesn't matter what it is. Right. I'm looking for the intangible excellence. I'm like, are they doing that one role with excellence? If I can see them with a heart of excellence doing whatever that role is, and having an environment of wanting to be connected to a team and wanting to contribute to a team and wanting to make a larger, I know I have a developing leader there, and then I'll put more time and energy into them. I do find that some of the leaders, as a rule of thumb, will watch somebody for 90 days and see a great performance for 90 days and then make a judgment call. I've learned that I have to watch them for 12 to 18 months to see if they're consistent, and kind of that consistent. Which kind of leads me to an appreciation of kind of, as we're building out our teams, what are some of the intangibles that we should be looking for if if we're really trying to shift our own mind into, because I find that a lot of leaders want to control everything. And I know you well enough to know, and even before we hopped on, there are things that we're good at, and there are things we're not good at.
Yeah.
And I know you and I share the vision of, obviously, well, let's do the things we're good at, and let's let others do the things they're good at. But help me understand maybe how you can use mind shift to develop a team.
Yeah, there's a massive shift in what you're looking for. I think the organizations that make the biggest mistakes are looking for talent.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and one, if you can hire talent away, that talent will be hired away.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you're looking to build a long-term team, don't look for people who leave because you're paying them more money.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
someone else will pay them more money.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the best strategies to get the fastest level of income raises is to keep leaving companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so and if you want to be a part of that process for someone, that's fine. But just realize that you're just a step in their
Yeah.
salary development, strategy.
Yeah.
And but I look for things like kindness.
Mm-hmm.
How do people treat people?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's probably the most significant thing. In fact, I was just in a medical center in Costa Rica, and they only handle a certain number of clientele.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me on the second day, they said, we look for certain things when if we're going to decide we're going to work for someone. They said, and actually, this was in El Salvador, and they said, the way that you went and started talking to the waiter
Mm-hmm.
and just started asking about his life and his family and everything else, we knew right away we wanted you to be a part of this organization.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, they have a very similar way of processing people. I don't care how you treat me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of know that you may treat me in a way that you don't treat anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really care about the way you treat the people on my team and in our world who can offer you nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the first things I look for is, does this person have a pattern of respecting people and treating them with kindness?
Yeah.
But also, I look for people who, it's interesting. If they talk badly about their last boss, I won't hire them.
I have a similar rule.
Yeah. So when I'm interviewing them, I'm not really looking to see, about their skill set or, I assume if you're leaving, you're not happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
right? And there's just certain things, right?
Yeah.
And just like every dating relationship that ends badly, no matter
Yeah.
what anybody says, because one of the two did not want to end it.
Yeah. That's
And if
right.
they both wanted to end it, it was really bad.
That is the truth. Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
And
Yeah.
so when people go, oh, well, why do all your relationships end badly? Because if they end, they ended badly. And
Yeah.
just like with jobs, and I go, how a person talks about the boss that they didn't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge, because I know that's how they're going to talk about me. You
Yeah.
know, how much responsibility they take for the success or failure of their previous job.
Mm-hmm.
And even if if it didn't go well, but they take ownership and go, I could have done this better. I had to learn this skill, or I just didn't have this skill. I'll hire that person faster than the person who thinks they had all the skills and all the competencies, but the company just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And because they have a victim mentality, and they'll carry it with them to the company that you
Yeah.
run.
Yeah. And then and unfortunately, they end up poisoning the team around them long term, from what
Yeah.
I've seen. Yeah. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the show. Steven Scoggins here. I've got something that I think is absolutely going to blow your mind. Imagine taking your life and your business to the whole another level. I'm talking about an 8-figure level and beyond. You see, you've been working your butt off to build your business to where it is now. But what if you could work smarter, free up more time, make more money and impact along the way? How much would that be worth to you? You see, I can prove that basic steps, basic mindset shifts, and subtle changes can make the biggest difference. I want to introduce you to the 8-figure mindset makeover. It's absolutely free and it's here for you. It's a powerful summary of my top strategies that help propel me from the streets, if you will, to upwards of 9 figures and quote unquote success as we like to chase it. This is more than just tips though. It's a complete mindset overhaul with simple hacks that you can apply today to begin working on your unprecedented heights in your own business. I would like the honor to share these types of things with you that turn my dreams into reality so you can experience the same type of joy and freedom that I now get to live out in my own day. In other words, it's time for you to build your own unstoppable enterprise. And if you're really ready to take it to the next level and elevate your life and your business, this is an absolute game changer for you. So if you want to take advantage of this free resource, simply go to the show notes and click the link, or you can go to stevenscoggins.com/8-figure. That's stevenscoggins.com betterhelp.com/8figure. Until then, much love. God bless. Let's get back to the show. Take care. In today's world, it's almost like we're searching for significance outside of ourselves. And I know in the book, one of the things that really touched me was um, the perspective of chasing an image versus becoming a person of substance.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a massive shift, especially in today's world, because
Mm-hmm.
we're all trying to prove that we have value by external means,
Yeah.
rather than pursuing becoming a person of, I would refer to as, when I define substance, I'm thinking depth, I'm thinking wisdom, I'm thinking patience, I'm thinking kindness and humility, but not humility where so much so where you get ran over. Um,
Yeah.
Talk to me about the importance of that shift and why it was so important to communicate that in the book.
Yeah, this is a tricky one in some ways, Stephen, because um, I do a lot of psychological assessments on, high level leaders
Mm-hmm.
almost across the board. When you're dealing with something that could be described as image management, how
Mm-hmm.
much energy a person puts on their public persona.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Most of the people I've graphed that are highly successful are in the top like 1% of image management. They
Yeah.
they have a very powerful public persona that
Mm.
hides who they really are from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about connecting to your real self, I have to admit right up front, this won't stop you from being successful.
Yeah.
And if I told you that it would keep you from being successful, I would be dishonest.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, having a persona might actually make you more successful. I'm just going to throw that out there like that.
Yeah.
And but it leaves you empty,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the great challenges is the world falls in love with the person you created, not the person you are.
Mm.
And so you feel a huge disconnect, even from fame.
Mm-hmm.
And you ever wonder why famous people feel so lonely?
It's because they feel, I would argue they don't feel authentic. They feel like they have to put up a front in order to maintain whatever they built.
Because they're using so much of their energy creating a persona, an image. And and then they don't know if you see them whether you will love them or
Mm-hmm.
accept them.
Yeah.
And so then the danger of letting you see them as they really are is too high.
Yeah.
The risk is too great. And so when I talk about this in the book, I'm not saying this will make you more successful in terms of wealth or power or fame.
Mm-hmm.
What I am saying is that if you don't learn how to create a connection between your authentic self and your public image, you're going to experience a level of aloneness in your life
Yeah.
that will be suffocating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe the world doesn't deserve to know you,
Yeah.
but you have to have people in your life
Yeah.
that deserve to know you. And so you have
Yeah.
to make sure there are some people you're not performing for.
Yeah. Well, I know you even told a story in the book about, a 10-figure plus earner that
Mhm.
seemingly had everything and then, got to the point where he took his own life,
Yeah.
and from personal experience, especially early days, the wealthier I became, the more lonely I was because I was always, do they want me or do they want the money or the access or the connection? Like, what do they really want? And, when I didn't have those, um, I guess those shiny things attached to my name, so to speak, it was easier because it's like, he's just Steven,
Hmm.
you know? And I find that pursuing that has been a big shift for me. I began trying to pursue becoming a person of substance about a decade ago,
Mm.
right? What I've learned is when we pursue that level of desiring to becoming a person of substance and depth and empathy and compassion and kindness and generosity and humility, and you begin to attract in many of those same people into your life. And I go back and forth with manifestation talk and whatever because I'm a Jesus guy, but also know quantum mechanics is kind of plays in all this too. So it's like trying to figure out how all this kind of comes together, and I don't know. It just it seems to me that the most financially successful people that I know that have a life that I would admire, and we share this similar friends that have those types of lives. They pursue almost everything through the heart of service, impact, and are constantly trying to develop themselves to a higher level. Constantly. It's like the wealth, the fame, and the things that come with it are kind of like ancillary items.
Hmm.
What do you think it takes to shift that though? Like from a self perspective, how does one become aware that that needs to shift in them?
I think it's a very difficult shift. And I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes, I mean, by the way, the most narcissistic people will have the most service-oriented language
Hmm.
because they genuinely believe everything they're doing is the best thing for humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's a challenge. And so you really can't measure it based on what you're doing for yourself, but what you do for others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a huge part of the way you make that shift in an authentic way is doing things for others that no one knows about.
Yeah.
Y- you know, being generous without making it your campaign.
Yeah. Which is precisely what Jesus told us to do.
Yeah, yeah. I think Jesus really had an insight on.
Yeah. He's had a corner on the market for 2,000 years. That's for sure.
Yeah, and so when you see people being hyper generous publicly, you
Mm-hmm.
realize, oh, this is still a part of their public image.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it's how you treat people privately. It's how you're generous privately. It's the sacrifices you make privately, where you don't even have a need. If they become known, it's almost like incidental. It
Yeah.
wasn't
Or on
strategy.
accident. Yeah.
And also it may be that there's a time in a day where you tell that story
Mm-hmm.
because it inspires other people or because it helps people understand who you are, but it has nothing to do with when you did it and why
Yeah.
you did it,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
No, I love that. And I also know that in the book, you give several examples of a contrast of people
Mhm.
using their image one way and their personal life or their behind the scenes life being almost the polar opposite of it.
Yeah.
Spending time and energy there. Well, I want to pivot just a little bit. One of the things that I love a lot about Mindshift, this is not just a book. Um, you went out of your way to like put together a lot of bonuses for anyone that actually took advantage of the book and actually got a copy of it. And I personally, as a business owner who has multiple businesses and who's trying to do a good job leading teams, I think it's not just a book for just the leader. I think it's a book for the leader and the team personally.
Yeah.
Personally,
Love that.
why did you want to give away so much stuff with people that purchased the book and took advantage of the book?
It's funny, I wasn't in this whole like business funnel space.
Hmm.
I mean, even the word funnel was like a new word for
Makes you
me,
twitch.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
well, a funnel was something you ate ice cream in,
yeah, yeah.
and, but and people say, well, I have to, you give things away to finally get to the product you sell. Well, I've always been the opposite. I've always given everything away.
Yeah.
We hired a company to help us figure out, okay, how do we monetize some of this? And they go, your biggest challenge is you've been giving everything away for 40 years.
So
And so
everybody expects it.
so the moment you charge like $5, people go, wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, but this guy's charging like 50,000. They go, yeah, but he always charged. And so they're used to that transactional relationship.
Hmm.
And so it's been the opposite for me. I've always given everything away.
Yeah.
And it was really a couple of my friends who are in the business space who said to me, well, it said several things, but everybody has like these cliches that actually mean something.
Hmm.
They go, hey, if they don't pay, they don't pay attention.
That's very true.
And I went, what? And they go, look, I'm just telling you, you're
Mhm.
giving everything away. And so it has the same value, zero.
Yeah.
And so you're communicating to everyone that everything you've created all your life has zero value.
Yeah.
And so they're responding to it with zero value.
Hmm.
And they go, but your stuff can change people's lives. So you need to begin to create for them, not for you,
Yeah.
realization of value.
Yeah.
And it was like, a mind shift for me. And,
There we go. There's the mind shift.
it was a significant mind shift where my son who runs our company is like, we're going to actually attach value to the things you create that actually reflect the amount of work and the outcomes that will happen in people's lives. And it was so hard for me. I mean, it was like being a freshwater fish jumping into the salt water.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah.
if I could survive it. And when we created the art of communication, and all of a sudden people started buying it left and right,
Hmm.
and people had more value
Hmm.
that I charged like $5,000 for
Yeah.
than what I had given them with the exact same quality for free.
Wow.
And then one of my friends, John Gordon, said, I did this event and I did it for free, and we had so many complaints. And then we did a similar event, we charged a lot of money. We didn't have any complaints.
Wow.
And we started looking at the research. We found that people who get things for free are always dissatisfied.
Yeah. It's
And
never enough. Give me more,
it's
please.
never enough.
Yeah.
And, you know, so some of it was I had to do the reverse funnel. My whole world was free. And then we created things. And what it did is I'm 65. And so I've been, you know, I've lived the bulk of my life giving everything I create for free.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't allow me to have a filter because I want to invest in the people who want to be the best in the world. And,
Yeah.
you know, I've kind of accepted that I'm allowed to do this at this stage in my life.
Yeah.
Because for 40 years, I invested in everyone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But there's a certain sense of the urgency of time in my life where I go, I'm going to invest in the people where they have almost no room for a margin of error. I'm going to invest in people who want to live at the highest capacity. And those people are only going to take this seriously if they actually have to have a high buy-in.
Yeah.
And so I began creating high buy-in processes, and it brought the best people in the world to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and the impact you can have on a global scale when you shift someone's value system that has billions of dollars has an exponential effect that even a wonderful person that maybe has $20,000.
Yeah.
And you help them make the same shift, but the collateral positive effect is dramatically different.
Yeah. Compounding of influence.
Yeah. And I realized, like, one of the things that really I had to deal with is stewardship. People of great success will actually listen to me.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And
I've been listening to you for years. You've been a virtual mentor long before we ever got to know each other.
And so, you know, when I spend my life, I spend a lot of my time teaching 20-year-olds. Mosaic is still, you know, average age is in the 20s. But I also know a lot of people can teach them what they need to learn right now. But very few people can teach the best of the best, the things that I can teach them.
Yeah.
And so it's really about a stewardship of my own resource and my own energy and time. And that's why we've done it like this. And so we do a lot of things for free because it's actually inherent to my nature. I just love giving things away.
Well, the stuff you're giving away is not like chump stuff. That's what like threw me for a loop. I was like, he doesn't have to give that away.
No, I would give everything away, honestly, you know, and if I could find a way to actually be self-sustaining, because, you know, one of the challenges when you're a pastor, which I'd been for decades, is that, you know, you live in this catch-22. People think that you're doing it for the money, but you're not making any money. You know, so it's like, you know, you have the worst reputation and the worst income. And so you don't, you don't get a benefit on either side.
Yeah, you have a big heart trying to do good in the world. Go figure.
Yeah, you know, and on the flip side, you're always dependent on someone else's success to finance the church.
Yeah.
But for 30 years, my wife and I have been probably the biggest givers of the church for almost all those 30 years. And people never knew that. I worked multiple jobs so that we could actually finance the vision of the church. And one of the things I just decided to do in my life is I actually have the capacity to create wealth. I have the capacity to create, you know, materials and processes and systems that are incredibly invaluable to people. And I can actually create more wealth to do more good rather than hoping my friends will give. I'm going to be the friend that gives.
That in and of itself is a mind shift.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that, and I don't mean that in a low term. I mean that in a very high term. I think a lot of folks, and I don't mean, and this is no hate, no shame on anybody, because I've definitely been this person before, spend more time consuming than creating.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so people that pour themselves into the creator role can actually create a larger shift in the world around them, no matter how big or how small, right? Yeah. Before we wrap up the show, I want to maybe talk a little bit about the importance of forgiveness, because it's such a powerful chapter in the book. And I think it's, again, one of the most underutilized things from my own life, my own experience. It wasn't until I was able to get to a certain level of forgiveness with a certain variety of different things that I actually began to feel free. Why did you spend so much time breaking down the importance of forgiveness and kind of how that plays into everything?
Yeah, that's the chapter. Bitterness and other poisons will kill you. And I think a huge part of it is when I look back over 40 years of human interaction, if you could see interacting with humans as a social experiment, you know, and I would say 90%, you know, just, off the top of my head, of the reasons people are held back are internal negative emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
You,
true.
you know, people think it's intelligence or training or skills or opportunity. But what I find is that what holds most people back is having an unhealthy internal world shaped by bitterness,
Yeah.
unforgiveness, envy,
Mm-hmm.
jealousy, you know, and it plays itself out through like gossip and slander and being malicious. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's why there's so much hate on social media, because that's what's inside of people.
Yeah.
The internet does not create an evil society.
Yeah.
Everyone's like,
No.
the internet's ruining everything. No, it's humans. We just
We're
have
the
to figure
cause of
out
our
the
own
internet.
problems. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, we find a way.
Yeah.
And I wrote that chapter because I felt that if if I help a person become successful in the business world and help a person become more capable of scaling, but I don't help them find a healthy inner world, I don't know if I'm really making a difference in their life.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to take a moment and pull everybody back and go, okay, let's talk about forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Let's, because I've been betrayed. I don't know anyone who's
Mm-hmm.
ever been successful who hasn't been betrayed.
Yeah. And at a deep level.
Oh, I was at one mastermind. And I mean, I've had one business partner who really betrayed me. I mean, I lost like
Mm.
$6 to $10 million, and but one guy got up and goes, "I'm in 4 lawsuits." Another guy got up and goes, "I'm in 10 lawsuits." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh!"
Wow.
And they're all like former business partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I didn't end up in a lawsuit simply because when they sent me all the legal notices, I said, "You can have the whole company."
Mm.
And they go, "What?" And I said, "I'm not going to fight you. You can have everything,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just start all over again." And so that's how I stayed out of court. Was I
Yeah.
literally gave up everything.
Yeah.
And but most people don't do that. Most people fight and fight and fight and hold on to the past. And I mentor a guy, and he's amazing, but he was in a lawsuit with the DOJ for years. One of the largest settlement, I think, in U.S. history, $4.2 billion,
Holy cow.
and was still mad.
Whoa.
And we still had to have a whole session with the team on forgiveness and bitterness.
Mm.
Because even after he won, he was like, "Yeah, but justice hasn't been done. What they did was wrong, and we need to go after them." And I'm like, "You just won $4.2 billion,
Mm-hmm.
paid off every debt for every he owns maybe 20 companies or something like that."
Yeah.
But money cannot heal what only forgiveness can heal.
Mm-hmm. And the crazy part about forgiveness is it's on the inside. It's you. It's you
Yeah.
forgiving them, but not necessarily. I was always told that if you seek to forgive, you can find forgiveness, but it doesn't mean you have to forget. Doesn't mean you didn't learn a lesson. Doesn't mean you don't gain some wisdom from the experience of what not to do again or how not to expose yourself, etc.
Yeah. Here are the things I think are important. Forgiveness and trust are not the same thing.
Okay.
You're supposed to forgive immediately and trust slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Like when someone's betrayed you or someone has definitely wronged you, and you can forgive them immediately, but it doesn't mean you have to trust them. A lot of people have a hard time forgiving because they think the moment I forgive, I have to trust them.
Yeah.
Not only do you not have to trust them, you probably shouldn't if
Yeah.
it was a deep betrayal. Second thing is, forgiveness doesn't mean an invitation back into intimacy.
Yes.
And so
Absolutely.
a lot of times people won't forgive because they think with forgiveness is an invitation to the previous relationship. And it's not.
Yeah.
You can forgive and say, "I forgive you. I don't trust you." That's going to have to be earned. Might take
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
I forgive you, but I don't invite you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That previous level of friendship or relationship is no longer available to you.
Yeah.
It's not because I don't forgive you. It's because I do forgive you, but I'm moving on.
Yeah.
But then I think the third thing about forgiveness that we should all acknowledge is that forgiveness sucks. and, and
Yeah. That's true.
because it's easy to forgive someone that's genuinely sorry.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really hard to forgive someone who isn't sorry. And it's really, really hard to forgive someone who's so arrogant and so narcissistic. They don't even think they need forgiveness. And you're like, why should I forgive them? They don't even know. They're not worthy of my forgiveness. And you have to go, it's not that they're worthy of it. It's not that they deserve it. It's not that they've earned it. You just have to be free.
Yeah.
Because as long as you're bitter, you're in their story.
Yeah.
The only way to get back into your own story is through forgiveness.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm. Brother, I love you and I love this conversation. I could talk to you for days and weeks and years. And fortunately, I get to hang out with you every now and again. But you mentioned mentorship. I want to wrap up the show with this because I think it's important. I know you got a lot of folks that are after you to work with you. And I know you have limited bandwidth because I know about the businesses that you're part of and the travel schedule. With the last events, you were coming literally across the world just to spend an hour with some folks. And I've always loved your heart for commitment to excellence and servitude or service of others. Talk to me a little about the arena because I feel like that's going to be the best fit for a lot of folks that really would like to gain your wisdom and insight and have some access to you, but be in direct proportion with their commitment to personal and professional growth. So tell me, why'd you create the arena?
Oh, well, I created the arena because I still care about people who are in the early stages of their development.
Yeah, me too.
I felt like there was a tier kind of missing. Mosaic is like the free tier.
Yep.
Everything, that I can give to you that will help you in the early stages of your development and health and wholeness is for free. You just go online, go to Mosaic app. It's all free. Oh, by the way, when you talk about loving to give things away, this morning we just created something for you. It's go to erwinmcmanus.com/free.
Make it easier for me, will you?
Yeah. And we put our communicators toolkit there for people who really want to develop their communication skills. And so Mosaic was free. And then I have this one-on-one coaching that's, 6 figures. And it's very hard, obviously,
Well, you don't have a lot. You have openings like once every 7 years. So
yeah. So there's not many, there's just a handful. And I do it. And it's hard for me because I care deeply about people. So when I take someone on at that level, I carry the stress and, the anxiety of their life, their success. And so it takes a lot out of you. And then we have a mastermind right now just for men. And it's not that I'm not interested in developing world-class women leaders. I just didn't have a woman at this time that could partner with me. And I didn't feel like I should do it by myself.
yeah,
And that's always just been kind of like my code,
yeah,
in life. And so we have a men's mastermind that's around $40,000. And so that still is fairly exclusive and only some people can afford that. So we created the arena because I thought, how do you create a mastermind that's more financially accessible and you don't have to travel all over the world? Some people just can't afford to get on a plane, get a hotel, be a part of a 2-day mastermind. So we created the arena and we made our focus communication, leadership, character, and then it's a triangle. And the big space in the middle is big ideas because I want to have a place where we could just talk about every big idea in the world.
Yeah.
And so right now, so all the content I create, like the art of communication, the 7 frequencies of communication, all the material is in there for free. Everything we do in our live arena conference, all the talks are in there for free. So everything I will ever create is going to be in the arena for free because I hate to sell. So that way the membership just solves the problem.
Just free value for the rest of your life. Enjoy.
And then what I've been doing, even though it's not a part of the arena, because I just really enjoy investing in people, is every Monday at 10 a.m. I go live and I teach for an hour. And in that hour, I do about 30 minutes and we have 30 minutes of Q&A with people all over the world.
Yeah.
Our newest member of the arena joined from Prague, Czech Republic.
Wow.
I mean, people coming from all over the world. It's a great community. I'll talk about things like overthinking and how to overcome that. Honestly, in one of the sessions, I talked about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and how to process the media and how to determine what is actually true, what's false, and how to think.
Yeah.
And so, I'll take an issue like that and go, I'm going to use this particular issue to teach you how to think at a higher level. And, and so we try to make nothing off limits in terms of the conversations we have there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would invite people to join. I think if you go to erwinmcmanus.com, the arena, you can actually learn more about it. Again, anything that connects to sales, that's just really not my
it's good. I'll make sure my team throws the links and all the show notes and all that good stuff because my audience knows that if I only will even verbalize a belief in someone's product, good, service, or whatever, if I'm actually consuming it, using it, or have consumed it over time. And I've been following your career now for ever since Ed did his event here, and I've enjoyed getting to learn more about Mosaic, enjoyed learning more about you, and kind of because it's a lot of times it's hard for people to fully understand the value they're getting from thought leaders nowadays because they are in many cases so accustomed to funnels and all that good stuff. I haven't seen anything of yours yet that I wouldn't pay money for.
Thank you.
And as someone who's looking to be a person of substance and depth, I want to invite everybody watching the show and listening to the show now. We'll put it in the show notes to access Mindshift for sure, 100%. And if you're looking for a great solution to develop yourself with routines, like with an infrastructure, then definitely check out there. We'll do that for you for sure. But Erwin, dude, I love you, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on, dude, and I can't wait to do this again.
Hey, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
All right, brother. Take care. See you.
I hope you liked that video. And if you did, make sure you check out this next video right here.
Vulnerability is a strength. Letting your guard down, letting people get closer to you, and being able to be transparent. I think that right now you see a lot of people out there that get consumed in their pain. All pain is relative, but all pain is not